Cancer is a disease of the genome. What do I mean by that? I mean that cells get mutations in your body. Some mutation happens in one cell in its genome, in its DNA, and that causes the cell to start growing in a certain way. And then it gets another mutation and another mutation, and they begin to pile up these mutations, and that eventually leads to cancer. And you'd think if I could just read out the information from a cancer and compare it to the normal cells in the rest of the body, I could write down all of the mutations that had happened. Now, some of them are just random noise, but if I start comparing many cancer patients and I ask what's in common, I can begin to see the genes that underlie cancer. Well, in the 1980s, the mid-1980s, people began to use functional biological techniques to find cancer genes, and they found many cancer genes. But what's amazing is over this last decade, using these kinds of tools, all sorts of new cancer genes are being discovered by systematic approaches that didn't require a prior guess as to what these genes do. Genes for lung cancer. It turns out the thing we used to call lung cancer is now a pie chart with many different slices. There's 10% that have mutations in one particular gene, and 10% that have mutations in a different gene, and now it so happens people have developed drugs against those particular mutations for those slices of the pie. Skin cancer. About half of skin cancers have mutations in a particular gene that goes by this funny name called BRAF. And just recently, the FDA approved BRAF inhibitors against that particular mutation. Multiple myeloma. We now know some of the pathways underlying multiple myeloma and brain cancers. In fact, I'll tell you about an experiment that was done 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, someone, a colleague back at the Broad Institute, took all the data from 6,000 different cancers, poured them all into the computer, the DNA information from the tumors and the normal, and asked the computer, how much can you reconstruct of everything we know about cancer based on this information? And the computer was able in a single run to reconstruct almost all the knowledge we have about genes that underlie cancer from that data set and discover many more genes as well, which tells us we're not done yet by far.